All right, welcome back to another a better NFL Top 100. This is now the 80 through 71 ranks. I did the other, I've done 81 through 100 already on this channel, two different videos there. But now we are moving on to the next 10. So getting into the real, star players here. I think, no disrespect to the other guys, but, we're getting better players. So let's just get into it, starting off with number 80. Number 80, Shaq Leonard, formerly known as Darius Leonard of the Indianapolis Colts, who, he's a tough guy to put on this list. I mean, someone who I thought 2 years ago maybe had his best year, but last year was hurt, and it's kind of injuries are concerning at that position, and that definitely hurt his stock a little bit. I do think he is someone that, when healthy though, it absolutely belongs on this list. I think that what his ability to make splash plays is fantastic, and he's someone who I do think is underrated as just I always compare linebackers to like the baseball player of there's home runs and there's batting average. He's obviously a big home run hitter, but I think he has a solid batting average as well. So, good player for the Colts. I have him here at 80. Next up on this list is Brandon Graham, who I feel like is one of the more consistent players, in the NFL. I mean, this is a guy who's consistently been like an 8 sack guy, 8+ sack guy for the majority of his career. Here's a crazy stat. I couldn't believe this was true. Brandon Graham had his first career season where he had 10 sacks last year. That doesn't make sense, right? That's not possible. He had his first time ever. He had 10 sacks, but no, because he had like an 8 sack season, an 8.5, a 9.5 sack season, but never that 10.5 sacks, 10 season until this year where he had 11. So he's a fantastic player for Philadelphia. Huge, means so much to that team. Still is with the Eagles. They were able to make sure they kept him, and he is, a fantastic edge rusher and deserves to be on this list. I have him here at 79. 78 is the New Orleans Saints cornerback, Marshon Lattimore. Lattimore, who, on his best day, he's a top 10 player in the NFL. On his worst day, he's off this list. He's just so inconsistent as a player. But when he's good, he's so good. And that's just what kind of drives you crazy about Lattimore. He has been beat for sure. But when he's going, I mean, it just feels like he's, unbeatable. So definitely a guy who, again, corners in general are inconsistent. Him even more so, though, than the average corner. But I still think that he's, the good outweighs the bad for Lattimore for me. I still think he's a great player. And so that's why I have him here at number 78. Next up is DeAndre Hopkins, the first player on this list who is not currently on a team as of recording this, although I have to record these a bit in advance. So there's a chance that he has been signed by a team before, he ends up, before this video comes out. But as of right now, I know that the team just got rid of him for nothing. I know he just got cut. So that might make you say, okay, is he washed up? He is a bit older. I really don't feel that way. When I watch him play, he still feels like an elite level wide receiver to me. And that's what I'm viewing it on. That's how I evaluate it. Listen, I get why the Cardinals wanted to, clear some cap space. Also, where they're currently at, losing might not be the worst thing in the world to do. But when Hopkins is playing, he is a true number one receiver, in my opinion. So the injury stuff and not being on the field as much definitely hurts him in these rankings, but I still think he's great. I have him at 77. 76, give me Roquan Smith, a guy who I didn't put on the list last year. And I remember people were mad at that. People felt like Roquan deserved to be on the list. I believe I had him as an honorable mention, but definitely on the list this year. I think what we learned of Roquan Smith is that he is not situation proof. I think if you put him in a bad situation, he's not going to look great, as we saw with the Bears. But when he's in a situation where you can really kind of utilize his talents to their benefit, then he doesn't just look good. He looks amazing. So to me, Roquan Smith, he's a player who, you do have to put him in a specific spot for him to succeed. But if you put him in that spot, he's not just good, he's awesome. And maybe after a full year of that, I'll bump him up higher on this list. But for now, 76 feels fair. Number 75, we're now at the quarter-way mark, and give me Geno Smith of the Seattle Seahawks, who I think some people will think this is too high of a spot for Smith. I think most people would have Smith on their list, but maybe in kind of like the 90s range. I think Smith was really good last year. Again, he was a MVP candidate at a certain point last year. And while people keep saying it's just 1 year, that's not entirely true. 2 years ago, in just a couple of games, he looked really good for the Seahawks, but it was like, okay, that's a couple of games. What does that mean? But now that we take that sample size with last year's sample size, I'm buying into Geno Smith hype. How good is he? I don't know, but I think he's good enough to at least be number 75 on this list. Number 74 is Miami Dolphins interior defensive lineman Christian Wilkins, who really doesn't get enough credit. I mean, he was hyped up out of college, and I think people probably still remember him from that, from being a former Clemson player. And I get why he doesn't get the massive attention, right? Because the reality is, if you're a defensive lineman who doesn't get a ton of sacks, he only has 11 and a half sacks over his 4-year career in Miami. You don't tend to get the attention that maybe you would like, but he still is someone who I think can rush the passer well from the inside and set things up, be a good disruptor and good run defender as well. He plays that disruptor role and he plays it very well. So for me, that's why I have him on this list. He's here at 74. Number 3 is Jaycee Horn, who, we still haven't seen a huge sample size from Jaycee Horn. He had injuries early on in his career, but I feel like every time I see him, I'm just incredibly impressed with what he's able to do. I really do wonder with that Carolina Panthers defense where they would be without Jaycee Horn, because not a lot of secondary help. He's asked to do a ton, and he certainly does his part. I think that they will ask him to, like, hey, go one-on-one against the opposing team's best receiver pretty consistently, and he pretty consistently is able to, if not win, at least hold his own. So for Carolina, a lot of people made fun of, like, hey, bet you'd rather have Justin Fields than a cornerback. Well, okay, maybe, but I have to say, Jaycee Horn's on this list. I did not put Justin Fields on the list. So at least as of right now, they maybe feel okay. Although, again, valuable quarterback, obviously more important than even an elite cornerback, but still, basically the point I'm trying to say is that at least they got a really good player out of it, which is what Jaycee Horn has been. Next up is Jaire Alexander of the Green Bay Packers, who, I thought had a bounce back year last year after not looking so great 2 years ago for the Packers. Was kind of a bright spot in a defense that was not great last year at times, I thought. I thought that he definitely was good. I don't know if he had his best year last year, but was still a very good player. So I have him here at number 72. And at 71, I go from a former Packer to a current, or excuse me, a current Packer to a former Packer as Corey Linsley, the former Packers center who is now a center for the Chargers, which I think that if I was evaluating this, if I made this list, 2 years ago, he's probably a lot higher than 71. I don't think he's been quite as dominant with the Chargers as he's been at the Packers, but he's still been a very good player, and in my opinion, still belongs number 71 on this list. So yeah, that's where I have him here. Those are the 10 players that I will be going over today. So again, 71, Corey Linsley, Jaire Alexander, Jaycee Horn, Christian Wilkins, Geno Smith, Roquan Smith, DeAndre Hopkins, Marshon Lattimore, Brandon Graham, and Shaq Leonard. If you want to hear the players who are above them on the list, those videos are here on this channel. If you want to hear the players who are below them on the list, or I guess have a lower number than them on the list, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Tomorrow I will be posting that video. So yeah, be on the lookout for that. Let me know what you think of these 10 in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.